Okay. Uh-oh. Okay, it took me out for a minute. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, because it kind of took me out. I kind of count it an honor to be doing this. This is a blessing. This is a blessing. But I pray that as I share this, you will. I don't know what you'll feel, but I tell you, every time I tell the story, I feel honored that the Lord allowed me to go through this. We have prayer meeting on Tuesday afternoon, 12 o'clock, and it's kind of informal. Let me tell you one thing before I finish. I see an angel standing in the corner at this church. I've always seen it. The angel is a seraphim angel, an angel of praise. And he just stands there. And I thought it was just me seeing him, but we have a young man that's very gifted. He's about 17 years old. And one day he said, Sister Cynthia, something's over in that corner. What is it? And I said, what does it look like? She said, I don't know, but it's very tall and it's got a wing. I said, how many wings does it have? She said, I don't know. I only see 3, but they're running down the side. And I said, well, there's 6. And he says, it's an angel. I said, yes, it is. Now I'm saying that because of what happened along with that.
Okay.
Our angel only stands there. Well, at that time was only just standing there. Nothing else was going on. No movement, just standing there like a statue. Okay. So at this prayer meeting, our pastor opened up and asked a sister to pray. And the sister that prayed is very quiet. She's an usher, but her gift, as she doesn't realize it, is ushering in the spirit, because she's very, as I said, she's very quiet, she's very unassuming, and she doesn't like to be out in front. So she started out, Our Father, which art in heaven. And I'm a little cynical and smart mouth. And I said, oh Lord, this is gonna be a long one. And I did. And by the time she said, in earth as it is in heaven, I looked up. Well, when I pray for the last couple of years, when I pray with my eyes open, because the Bible says watch and pray. So I do. And so I was just looking up, because I was like, how long is this? You know how you look, I'm like, how long is this going to be? And I saw horses. And the horses, I have not decided how many they were, but to me, it was double row horses. And it looked like about 12 to 15 of them. I mean, a lot of horses. And I just watched them as they came through the ceiling. And by the time the horses got over by the angel, the chariot came through. And I described the chariot and what in the back of the chariot, like you driving down a dirt road, and you can look in your back window and you can see the dirt. But in front, you can't see anything. And I called it residue. I don't know really what to call it, but it was cloudy coming from the back of the chariot. By the time the chariot got down to just about where I was, you could no longer see the horses. It's like they went out the window or something. And I could only see the chariot. And so I said very quietly, he's leaving today. And one person heard me, but they said, what'd you say? And I kind of said, oh, nothing, I'm nothing, because I didn't really want to share that. And so I can't tell you the feeling that came. I don't know, well, I know all of you have had it. It's just a feeling in your body, like something anxious. I'll call it anxious, an anxious feeling. And I kind of was quiet. And music began to play. I just found out that he was playing, I thought he was just playing melody, but he was playing a song called He Is My Peace. I had never heard the song. Beautiful, and just playing very softly. And it was time for really us to dismiss. but nobody could move. And it got, he only was, the organ was playing, nobody was saying anything at first. And then this sister began to, I backed up, I left it out. In the beginning, after she got through the Lord, that earth is in heaven, forgot that, she began to speak in tongues. And I got out my pen and pencil. And she was talking about the Holy Host. And she kept repeating the Holy Host, Holy Host. And that's when the chariot and the horses came through. And I had written down the Holy Host. So I'm feeling that she's an usher. But she ushered in that Holy Host. Okay, after that, we sat there because we couldn't move. Nobody said anything and nobody moved and nobody said they saw what I saw. So the pastor tried to get up and say something and he couldn't. I could see him kind of rocking, trying to get up, and he kind of sat back down and didn't say anything. Finally, one of the sisters behind me in the back began to speak in tongues. The one right next to me, because we were kind of in a circle, but sitting all over the church, but it seemed like it was a circle. And then the girl sitting next to me started speaking in tongues, then me, then the person that was back across the aisle, but she was sitting a seat back. There was another sister sitting about 2 seats back. And as I looked around, it was like I say it was kind of like lighting a stick of dynamite. And as that wick ran, I didn't realize we were sitting actually in a circle. Now, I don't know what that meant. I haven't really thought about or understood what that meant. But it like the tongues kind of hit all around in that circle. And then it became silent again. Just the music, and the music has never stopped. And the pastor says he was going to dismiss, but he couldn't. And we sat there silent again. Nothing was going on, but you could just feel the glory. You could just feel it. It was like we were suspended or something. And I think I said to myself again, wow, he's leaving again. And I said it again. And finally, after about 15 minutes or to 20 minutes, pastor has tried to tell me, he says he thought it was longer, but I don't think it was too much longer than about 15 or 20 minutes. He said, if you can get up, if you can move, we're dismissed. And I know I sat there maybe about 10 minutes more. Well, usually after Bible class, we all go out to lunch or dinner, whatever you call it. And we usually go out of town because our town is very small and it doesn't have a lot of restaurants. But one of the ladies said, are we going out of town, Pastor? Because I don't feel like driving. And then everybody agreed that they didn't feel like driving because we usually only take about 2 cars. But those 2 people that usually drive said they didn't feel like it. And I realize now that they usually stop at the nursing home with me when we go. And so I realize now that nobody was supposed to be there with me but me. And so we went and ate. And I didn't feel urgency. I went and ate with them. We got through eating about 5 o'clock. I got home about 5:10. And I went up and drove up into my driveway and just kind of sat there. And really nothing on my mind. I just kind of sat there and the telephone rang and it was a nursing home. And they said, Miss Cynthia, your husband is being combative and he's doing a little kicking and everything. He said, can we give him a shot? I said, absolutely not. I will be there within 30 minutes. Do not bother him with anything. I'll be there. And so I did get there about 35 minutes. And when I walked in, they have to buzz you in, and he's in a quarantined wing because he has been in the hospital 2 weeks ago. And they keep you down there for about 10 to 14 days before they put you back in your room. So he was down kind of by himself, another man on that wing. and they let me in, and they didn't, walked away. I went in there, and he had kind of thrown up a little bit on himself or slobbered or something. And so I tried to clean him, and I said, this is my job. I'm not going to clean him. I'm going to call a nurse. So I called the nurse to come down. And while they were cleaning him, they cleaned him up, changed his bedding and everything. And while they were doing that, I said, he's leaving today. And she says, oh, where are you taking him? You taking him out? You're moving him? I said, no, he's not. I'm not going anywhere, but he's leaving today. And so she sat down, and she didn't say anything. She just sat down. And then I walked over to the bed, and I have a habit of playing in his hair. Got real soft hair like cat fur. And I like to play in it, and I massaged his scalp and everything, and was kissing him. And then I said, and his eyes kind of opened a little bit, but he wasn't talking. He stopped talking about two days before that. But his eyes would open every once in a while, and he'd move his lips, but he didn't say anything. And so I said, honey, the kids are fine, and I'm going to be good. I'm going to be fine, and the kids are okay. And if you want to leave, you can go. And the nurse is watching me, and there was a young nurse, a CNA, with her. And this young lady says she only had worked 2 days. They were training her. And I told somebody she looked like she was about 12, but I'm sure she was an adult, but she looked very young, and she acted like she was very young. And they're just sitting watching me. So pretty soon they got up, and they asked if I needed anything. And I said, no, I don't need anything, but I'd like to spend the night, if that's okay. And they said, yes, that's definitely okay. You can spend the night. And I'll say that I clowned on Good Friday so bad because they didn't clean him up all day. And I acted so ugly that they let me do anything. I'm like, anything I say, that's fine with them now, because I kind of called down the law on them. And so they asked me if I needed anything. And I said, well, I'm a diabetic, so I might need some orange juice or something. Do you have any? And they said, no. She said, but I'm going home to see my kids during my break, and I'll bring you something. And so she did. So by the time all of that was over, I kind of laid back, and he's got a recliner in the room. I laid back in the recliner, and I think I snoozed a little bit. When I really watched the clock, it was about 9:30, 9:45, and the nurse came in, checked him, checked his pulse, checked his blood pressure. His blood pressure was 140, I think she said 144/80. That's pretty good. And checked his heart, and she says heart was beating strong. And kind of checked him to see if he was dry and all of that, and the bed was okay. And she said he's fine. She says he looks like he's settling in, getting ready to sleep. About a half an hour, maybe about 10 o'clock, 10:30, he started to shake and tremble, shaking the whole bed. And I thought he was cold. So I went over and turned up the heat, because heat was like on 68. I mean, the air was on 68. I turned it up to 72. And they definitely keep it cold in there, they said, because of germs. And so I turned it up and covered it up pretty good. And he stopped shaking, but he began to make noise, like something like that. And so I went over and sat on the bed, and like rubbed his arms and kind of rubbed it in the hair again. And he quieted down a bit and began to just snore. While I was there, the nurse came back, and he began to have facial seizures, just his face, not the rest of his body like he had before. And I asked her, I said, isn't this a seizure? And she said, yes. And he had a real hard one. And then it stopped in about maybe 4 seconds or 5 seconds. He had another one. And she says, I'm going to call for the ambulance. He needs to go to the hospital. I said, no, he's not going anywhere. And she says, you don't want him to go to the hospital? And I said, no, I don't want him to go to the hospital. Well, I've got him on a DNR, do not resuscitate. So they have to do, what I say. And so they're looking at me like, you don't know what you're doing. And I think they were kind of displeased with me, but they had to do it. So they went out. And I kind of settled back in my chair because he got all right, but he was still making that odd noise. Pretty soon he stopped the noise, and he started. Elmer's always slept with his mouth open, and he did not snore before he became had this dementia, but he whistled and he talked and all kind of stuff. He made noises when he slept. So he began to do that a little bit. He was making some odd noises, but they weren't like I thought. First, the first noise he would make was kind of like a death rattle. So I thought that's what that was. But I asked the nurse, and she said, "No, that's not really." She says, "This congestion. I think that's congestion." I said, "Well, okay," but I didn't like the noise. But he would go out, he would stop, and then he would snore, and then he'd do that again, and then he would snore. So I guess I got comfortable with that. About 1:30, they came in to check him, checked his pulse, checked his heart, and checked his breathing, and checked to see if he was dry again, and all of that. Turned him over. And then when they turned him over where his face was facing me. And he opened his eyes pretty good and kind of looked, but it was a stare, but kind of looked at me. And so when they got through, I went over and sat on the bed again and kissed him again and rubbed his hair and did all of that. And I sat back down in my chair after that. I probably stayed on the bed with him about 5 minutes. And he had I call it an oversized twin bed. It was bigger than a twin, but not as big as a full. And before I went back and sat down, I kind of laid down by him. And I said, well, I don't want them to come in there, and I'm laying down in the bed because they're real funny about cleanliness and health and all that. And I had a mask, I have masks on and everything, but I went on and sat back in the chair. About 5 minutes to 2, I realized he wasn't making any noise. It was completely silent in the room. I got up, and it took me a few minutes because the chair is very low, and I get bad knees, and so it took me a while to get up. But when I looked at the clock when I didn't hear any breathing, I got up and started checking, and so I checked the artery in his neck first, and when I didn't feel anything, I said, "He's gone," and I could feel myself smiling, and then I checked his pulse in his arm. And I was getting louder. I said, "He's gone." And then I checked his heart. I put my hand on his heart, and same thing. I was almost hollering that. I said, "He's gone." And then I put my ear down to his breath to see if I could feel or hear anything. And by that time, I'm almost screaming, "He's gone." And then I thought maybe they heard me because I kind of heard something in the hall, but they weren't coming in right away. They were running, and I'm hollering. And so I called her. She had given me her personal number, and I called her and I said, "Ashley, could you come down here a minute?" And she told me later, she says, "That didn't sound like urgency." I said, "Well, it wasn't urgent. He was with the Lord." And so they got down there, and I said, "He's gone." And they kind of looked at me, and they went over, the LPN went over with her stethoscope and checked his heart, and she couldn't hear anything, and began to check. She did the same thing I did, really. She checked his pulse, and she put her hand up by his mouth to see if she could feel anything. And she sat down, because the chair was right behind her, and she just kind of plopped down. She said, and she began to cry. And when she cried, the CNA, she began to cry. And she said, "I heard you. I heard you." And I didn't know what she's talking about. She said, "I heard you. I listened to everything. I heard you when you said he was leaving." And she said, "And I heard you when you released him and told him he could go." And by this time, she's actually sobbing out loud. And she stood up, and I guess to come over to me, and the other young lady got to me first, and she grabbed me and said, "We're supposed to be consoling you, and you're consoling us." And they're both sat back down and cried. And I didn't know what to do. I'm like, "What?" I'm just watching them. Well, by that time I was sitting on the bed again, and I was again rubbing his arms and rubbing his face and in his hair. And they I guess I don't, they must have called somebody else, because the young girl went out, and when they came back, she came back with another lady, and she was an older white lady, and she came over to the other side of the bed, and she's, my pal is gone. She said, we used to talk about the Lord together at night, and he told me he was a pastor. He told me about his children, told me where he was from, told me about his family, told me about his dad. She just went on and on. And then she bent over and kissed him. And I'm like, wow, okay. I didn't realize, at night he seemingly talked better at night than he did in the daytime, because they would tell me things that he said, and and things that he would do. And I thought that was amazing. 2 weeks, well, a week or so before this, he started not talking, they came in, and they couldn't find him. And they came all the way in the room, and he was under the bed, and they asked him how he got under there, and he didn't know, but they asked him what he was doing. He said he was under there fixing his car so he could drive home. And so they asked me, did he do that kind of stuff? I said, yeah, he did that kind of stuff and more. And so they said they were surprised how he had gone down and really stopped talking. But I took that as fixing his car so he could go home. Now, see, that meant something to me. And he wasn't talking about my house, he's going home to the Lord. And so they asked me to call the funeral people, and they would call someone to pronounce him. And so I told them, I said, well, I already pronounced him. He was 155. She said, well, you can't pronounce him. We have to call in the RN. And she lives a town over. It's going to be a while. So I called the funeral people, and I did not call the people that I had planned to call. I called people that were closer, because it was, by the time they got through with all that, it was after 2, and I figured they'd be too long getting here. So I called a closer funeral home that is in the town where I am. And by the time the lady got there to pronounce, it was 3:00. And they called, and by the time the funeral home got there, it was 4:00. And the young man came in, he said, I'm sorry for your loss. I said, no, we're not sorry. And my loss is heaven's gain. And so he says, where are you from? And I said, Chicago. He said, what side of town? And when you ask people, Chicagoans, they have a way to say it. And I said, South Side. And so he said, I said, where are you? What side of town are you from? He said, South Side. And I said, well, where on the South Side? Low end, high end, hundreds, where are you from? He said, 63rd Street, down by Apostolic Church of God. And I said, Bishop Brazier. And he said, you know them? I said, yes. And so he began to ask me about people. He said, I've been going there since I was 5 years old. I left there and snuck in the church and sat in the balcony, and Sister Barge found me. I said, I know Sister Barge. He said, well, Sister Barge found me and took me to Jeannie and Ray. And I said, Jeannie and Ray Knuckles? And he said, yes, you know them? I said, yes. I said, oh, wow, this is Old Home Week. And so I said, what are you doing down here? And he said, well, I came down to play to see my son play football. He's in high school down here. So I said, what's your son's name? And he said, Nick House. I said, oh, no. I said, I know his grandfather. I said, he's named after his grandfather. He said, yes. I said, I know his grandfather. I said, and I know his mother, your wife. He said, no, she's not my wife anymore. And I said, Brandy. He said, yeah. Well, Brandy goes to my church. And so I was like, wow, this is somebody that, I know these people. And as he is talking, he is preparing to put him in this bag. I believe the Lord shielded me from seeing most of that, because the young man, he says, well, why are you all down here? I said, well, my husband's a pastor, and he retired, and I like it down, my family's down here. And so he came down with me, and he said, well, I'm going to treat him like a king. And it looks to me, I don't know, I can't really say how he got him in the position to get in this bag, but it looks like he levitated because I didn't see any of that. And I'm standing right next to the man watching him. I don't know how he did it. But by the time he was in the bag, that's when I guess I came to myself and was watching. He says, if you want to do anything or touch him or anything, you have to do it now before I zip up, because you can't touch him after I zip him up in the bag. So I said, well, I've been trying to get his mouth closed and I can't get his mouth closed. And I said, my daughter is coming down with her children. She hasn't gotten here yet, but I don't want them to see him like this. And he says, don't worry about it. We've got trade secrets, and we'll have him looking good by the time your daughter gets here. Well, he said, well, I can't wait though. I said, well, can you open up? Can I see him in the morning? And he said, well, 10 o'clock you can come, and because you've got to make arrangements anyway. And he says, are we going to embalm? And I said, no, I'm having direct cremation. He said, okay. He said, well, no problem. We'll have him. So I had called just about all the children and told them, their dad was gone and all that. And my daughter, as I said, she was on her way. So I felt that I had nothing to do but go on home, which I did. I went home, and finally Joel came, and couldn't sleep. In fact, I was up 28 hours that day. Couldn't sleep. Okay, that was the first. On this, we went to the funeral home. By the time we got there, I was sitting down making arrangements. Joel went to see him. And I have pictures. They had filled his mouth, so it was filled in, and closed it, and told me their trade secret of closing it. And I thought, okay, and made the arrangements. Went home. Did I lose you guys? Hello. Did I lose you guys?
Oh, we can still hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I lost the picture first.
Video, yeah.
Okay. And so we had a regular day, but I could not sleep. So that was the second. On the third, my pastor called, and he said, we're having this. He called my girlfriend, who was at my house at the time. And mind you, my best friend down here, she's like 58. So she gets around quite a bit where I can. And the pastor says, well, we're going to go to the fellowship meeting in Memphis. And she says, well, I'm at Mama Cynthia's house. And he says, oh, be sure to tell her that I understand that she's grieving. And I said, oh, hand me the phone. So when he handed me the phone, I said, I am not grieving. I grieve from October 1st to June 1st. I am not grieving. I said, my husband is with the Lord wherever they are. And I said, I'm fine. What time are you picking me up? And he said, wow, you're going? And I said, I sure am. I'm sure going. So it was in Memphis. We get there. And down here, they don't have church like we have church. In fact, they're New Testament people. I haven't heard an Old Testament sermon since I've been down here. They teach everything's New Testament. They don't build their sermons like I'm used to. They just, I call it surface preaching. They don't understand what I'm talking about, but they preach milk and honey, just light stuff, prosperity and love. Okay, we get to this church, and the pastor of this church is an African, and I don't know what I expected, but you could hear the music outside. I mean, it was church, and we get in there, and it's just, I'm really said, oh, I'm going to really be lifted up. And the music was so great, and the praise was so great that I was feeling really great. The pastor introduced the speaker. The speaker gets up, and he says, I have a sermon. And he says, I don't know who this is to. He said, but he said, I'm going to tell you the title. And he said, it's about promise. He said, and they have a screen in the back, and you could see the word promise up there. But he said, I'm going to preach the view of the process to the promise. When that man said that, I busted out crying because I've been through a process, And I'm like, I had asked the Lord why he was taking my husband through this dementia thing. Why didn't you just take him on to glory? Why is he going through this? And the Lord had told me a couple of years ago, and I asked him why, asking for what purpose. So then I changed. I said, well, what purpose, Lord? And I didn't know, but I know now the purpose. One thing was to teach me patience, and the other thing was to prepare me. And I realized that that's what that was for. And this man, he took it out of the scripture in Kings about Elijah and Elisha in the mantle. And he kept saying, I'm showing you how to get through this process. Oh, he preached that thing. And when he really started in the preaching, I started crying. And he got so good, I didn't have time to cry, dried those eyes, and got up there with him and just started, listening really good and understanding what God was saying to me about his process. He actually told me the purpose through this sermon. View of the process. I mean, that man preached that thing. And so, we went on home after the service was over and everything. And that was Friday. Sunday for church, I had planned to be there early and got there extra early. And I was sitting out kind of outside waiting for them to come and open up the church. We get there and I look over at my angel, and the angel's wings were different. The angel's wings were kind of wrapped forward. Before that, they were just down, but they were kind of wrapped forward. And I'm like, okay, this is different. And I didn't get any meaning of that. But we began service and the music was different. We have the organist that plays for our church is the pastor's son, and he's a music teacher. He teaches music, and he is just phenomenal. He's just he can play. I don't know. I've never heard too many people play as good as him. Besides your wife, she can play. She plays kind of like him, but she doesn't. She plays more. What do I say? Soothing to me. Rosemarie's songs are soothing. His was kind of jumped up, like you're going to jump up and dance all the time. That's how he plays most of the time. So he had his dancing music on, and the people started the dancing, And this church is really a praise church. That's why that seraphim angel is over there, because that's a praise angel. And so I'm watching the angel, but I'm also watching what's going on. Well, meanwhile, my girlfriend that I'm telling you about, this young, she had to work. And the music was so good that I called her and told her, I said, I'm going to let you hear the music and the sermon today. And they get in, the pastor's wife gets up and she says, I want to sing a particular song. She said, but my son wants to play another song. So he's going to play, I'm going to let him play that. And he said, and Mother Cynthia, you're going to pray. And so I called her. I said, I said, I don't want to pray. I said, I don't pray long like you all. And I said, I don't feel the spirit that I'm supposed to pray this morning. So we have a prophet there. She got the prophet to pray. He prayed so that almost made my hair stand up on my arms. So he just was really praying. But you could feel that spirit in there, the same spirit that was in there that Tuesday night. And so I kind of reached over to the prophet and I said, that residue that came that I told you guys about? I said, it's still here. He said, I can feel it. He said, it feels like the Shekinah glory. He said, he said, thank goodness it's high and we can sit up. He said, because if it would lower, we wouldn't be able to stand it. And so that's how the atmosphere was just about all day Sunday. Pastor preached, and of all things he preached about, he said, a lot of you are not going to understand. He said, and he came over to me, he said, Mother Cummings, I'm getting ready to preach about sex. What you think? I said, oh, Jesus. I said, I'm going to holler loud and I got your back because these people are going to get you. And so he began to preach, and he came on. I mean, he preached. He preached about sex and fornication, and he was preaching. It was Young People Sunday, and he was trying to tell the young people to stay clean. He kept saying, "Stay clean," And he preached about a half an hour, and he doesn't preach from notes, and he very seldom preaches the pulpit. He just walks up and down and preaches. And after he got through preaching, the pastor's wife sang this song, and I'm gonna tell you, I can't remember. Somebody reminded me today what it was, but it's one of those old type songs like the Williams brothers or something would sing. Something speaks to me. I can't think what the name of the song is right now, but when she got through singing it, it's kind of bluesy. When she got through singing it, the church went up. I stood up and just stood there and watched it was like the people were doing things. One sister was over in the corner like she was boxing. And I looked in the back, and somebody in the back looked like they were running in time, running track, but in place. I looked over on the other side, even the young kids. Now, we have undisciplined children at this church. They're the pastor's grandkids, in fact. And they rip and run through the church all the time, to the point where I have snatched a couple of them and sat them down. They're always on the move. They're just undisciplined, and their mother she's hallelujah anyhow, and doesn't pay too much attention to them. These children did not move during that service. These children did not move when these people were rejoicing. And I noticed that right away. I said, whatever the glory has got, they got them pinned to the seat. They did not move. And as I turned around, I kind of put my hand on my hip and said, look at you, Jesus. Just look at this. And it felt to me, I said, my husband did not go to this church. Everybody called him Papa here in Tennessee, because my girlfriend called him Papa, and she introduced him as Papa. They called him Elder Papa at that church. And when they introduced him and tell him to, ask him if he'll have anything to say, they say, Elder Papa is here. Come on, Elder Papa. Well, Elder Papa gave a Bible class at that church one night about baptism, because these people down here do not have altar calls and they don't baptize much. From that Bible class, 17 people got baptized in Jesus' name at the Apostolic Church. This was the Church of God, but at the PAW Apostolic Church down here, we went over there because they have a pool and this church doesn't. Baptized 17 people, plus the pastor and his wife got rebaptized in Jesus' name. Wow. And now the pastor said he was already baptized in Jesus' name, but he said since the organization he belongs to, they baptize in Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. He said he wanted his people baptized in Jesus' name. So that was, and they always say, well, Elder Papa got us baptized. So I said, Lord, is this honoring? I felt like the glory that was still there was honoring my husband. And I felt like all the things that were going on was just in honor of him. That's how I felt. I don't know that it was. Okay, that's Sunday. Monday, I can't leave this out. The angel. A young man came up and said he was sick. He looked like he might have had leukemia or something, because he looked so weak and pale. He came up for healing. And a couple of the other saints came up, and I've never seen this young man before. And so after they had all the ministers kind of lay hands on him. And after they were through praying for him, I said, young man, go over there in that corner, right over there, and just go in there and kind of turn around a little bit. And he went in there and he kind of turned around a little bit and came out. And then one of the woman that said the prayer that ushered in the glory on Tuesday, I told her, I said, you need to go over there too. I said, go in there and turn around. Well, she not only turned around, she stood there. She like bathed in the angel. came out dancing. And so then when everybody saw this, people started falling into the corner. Before this, nobody had ever gone over in that corner. They just look over there because I say something's there, you know. They kind of bathed in that. So we were at church almost another hour while they all rejoiced. And after we left there, then there's Monday. This isn't through. Monday, 9 o'clock. And when I saw my girlfriend name, I said, now she know I don't get up at 9 o'clock. And I hadn't been to sleeping good. So she never calls me before 12. I said, something's going on. So I pick up the phone and she tries to say, let me tell you what's happened, but she couldn't get it out. And I listened to her speak in tongues for at least a half an hour. And I'm steady trying to say, what's happened? Well, I said, English, what's happened? I want to know what's happening in English. And I kept saying English, and she couldn't get English. So finally I told her, I said, go in your son's room and lay hands on him, and maybe he can tell me what's going on. And she went in there, she said, he won't wake up. Well, he told me later he did that on purpose, but she couldn't get a response. So she dialed another minister's number, and they had like a conference type call. And she began to rejoice. And I'm still trying to find out what's going on. Finally, after an hour of this, I watched by 10 o'clock, she finally was able to tell me. She said, I called Sister Hattie. Now, Sister Hattie is a saint that lives in Illinois that we know. And she called her to tell her about the service. And she told her about the service. And she said, I wasn't there. I was on the phone Sunday, the service. She said, me and my clients, she sits with a handicap. She said, me and my clients were rejoicing, just listening on the phone. She said, the spirit was in our house listening on the phone. She said, and when they told me people were over in the corner with the angel, she said, I could not, I'm just upset. She said, and I was trying to tell Sister Hattie about the angel, and all this broke out. She said, when I get there Tuesday, she said, I am going to bathe in this angel. Okay. So she said she was in glory all day. I'm like, okay. Tuesday comes. I'm late because I overslept. And so Tuesday, the Bible class is 12. I got there about 12:30, and they were like waiting for me to get there. I said, I thought you were going to bathe in the angel. She said, I am, but I had to wait till you got that because I want to see what happens. Well, Monday when she was speaking, she seemed to say, I'm setting it in motion. I didn't really understand what that meant. I'm setting it in motion. And I kept telling her, I said, well, the only thing I heard you during the whole session was, I'm setting it in motion. I said, I don't know what that means, but we'll find out because he's setting it in motion. We get there. She goes over in this and bathes in the angel. That's what she called it. And the angel came out of the corner. I saw it come out of the corner with wings open. And the Lord kind of brought to me that a seraphim, an angel of praise, why would it just be standing there? It's because it's a ministering angel, and we have not asked it or asked for that ministry. There's no, he just wasn't standing there to be standing there. He's a ministering angel. And when I saw the angel, I didn't tell anybody that the angel was out of the corner. It kind of just stepped up, out of the corner by the altar. I don't know what broke loose. Everybody was running, and I just sat there because I'm on a cane. I couldn't do the running. I thought the Lord would do something for my feet. He didn't. And I just sat there, and I'm like, Lord, this glory has not gone. And I just didn't understand it. And the Lord didn't show me anything else, but the angel has come out the corner. And then I remembered what was said. I'm setting things in motion. So I'm looking to see what else is going. I'm supposed to move at the end of the month, but I do not want to leave this motion. I don't know what it is. And that's really the last thing that kind of has happened. People have been coming by the house, extending their condolences and wanting to know why I didn't why I didn't have a funeral. And I said, well, for one thing, my husband told me not to put all the money in the ground. And I said, for another thing, we don't know enough people for me to pay $9,000 for a funeral. And so I did not. And I did tell my children that I didn't want the ashes, but when they went to pick up the ashes, I did let them bring them in the house. And
Can anybody hear me?
that I'm looking in. Okay. Oh, he's back on the recorder. Okay.
Yeah, I had another little glimpse in my,
Well, that's all right. I was really through. I was just giving God praise that my children were okay.
one thing
And that,
I wanted you to mention, and that was what the Lord had said about his years. You remember what you told me about that?
oh, yes, yes. And someone reminded me of that yesterday, called me and said that he had said it from the pulpit. So I wasn't the only one that heard it. He asked the Lord when we were about 60, how old he would be when he died, when he passed. And the Lord told him 81. And he asked the Lord for 2 more years. And I kind of laughed that. I said, you know what happened when Hezekiah asked him for more years? I said, he had more trouble than for the last 15. They did. He says, well, I better stick to the 81. And he said his secretary said he got up and told everybody that he would be leaving at 81 and he would be leaving before me. But he had taken it back because he had taken me back. He said, because when I got sick with the cancer, he thought I was going to leave. But indeed I did it. And so it happened just as the Lord told him. He left at 81 and he preceded me. And I thought that was interesting that the Lord would, tell him that. So I'm like, wow. The whole thing was a blessing to me. I'm telling you, I have not felt anything.